are really very sweet, gentle dogs who like nothing better than to be petted. I can't see you, it's pitch dark out there. Can we have the lights a little bit up so I can sort of see if I'm getting any reaction at all? Is there anybody manning the lights? Thanks. The business part of this evening is going to be the question and answers. That's always the most fun. But I have to say something ahead of that. And so, since I'm on a book job, what I'm going to do is do some readings from my latest book, Greatest Show on Earth, just to give a flavour of it. I'm going to be signing it afterwards, as you heard. And, but I hope that the most memorable part of the evening will be the questions and answers. Imagine you are a teacher of history, and your lessons on 20th century Europe are boycotted, heckled, or otherwise disrupted by well-organized, well-financed, and politically muscular groups of Holocaust deniers. Holocaust deniers rarely exist. They are vocal, superficially plausible, and adept at seeming learned. They are supported by the president of at least one currently powerful state, and they include at least one bishop of the Roman Catholic Church. Imagine that, as a teacher of European history, you are continually faced with belligerent demands to teach the controversy, and to give equal time to the alternative theory that the Holocaust never happened, but was invented by a bunch of Zionist fabricators. Fashionably relativist intellectuals chime in to insist that there is no absolute truth. All points of view are equally valid and should be equally respected. The plight of many science teachers today is not less dire. When they attempt to expound the central and guiding principle of biology, when they honestly place the living world in its historical context, which means evolution, when they explore and explain the very nature of life itself, they are harried and stymied, hassled and bullied, even threatened with loss of their jobs. At the very least, their time is wasted at every turn. They are likely to receive menacing letters from parents and have to endure the sarcastic smirks and close-folded arms of brainwashed children. The Archbishop of Canterbury has no problem with evolution, nor does the Pope, give or take the odd wobble over the precise paleontological juncture when the human soul was injected. Nor do educated priests or theologians. This is a book about the positive evidence that evolution is a fact. It's not intended as an anti-religious book. I've done that. It's another t-shirt. This is not the place to wear it again. Bishops and theologians who've attended to the evidence for evolution have given up the struggle against it. But it would be nice if they put a bit more effort into combating the anti-scientific nonsense that they deplore. All too many preachers, while agreeing that evolution is true and Adam and Eve never existed, will then blithely go into the pulpit and make some moral or theological point about Adam and Eve in their sermons, without once mentioning that, of course, Adam and Eve never actually existed. If challenged, they'll protest that they intended a purely symbolic meaning, perhaps something to do with original sin or the virtues of innocence. They may add witheringly that obviously nobody would be so foolish as to take their words literally. But do their congregations know that? How is the person in the pew or on the prayer mat supposed to know which bits of scripture to take literally, which symbolically? Think about it, Bishop. Be careful, Vicar. You are playing with dynamite, fooling around with a misunderstanding that's waiting to happen. One might even say almost bound to happen, if not forestalled. Shouldn't you take greater care when speaking in public to let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, lest ye fall into condemnation? Shouldn't you be going out of your way to counter that already extremely widespread popular misunderstanding and lend active and enthusiastic support to scientists and science teachers? Evolution is a fact, beyond reasonable doubt, beyond serious doubt, beyond sane, informed, intelligent doubt, beyond doubt, evolution is a fact. The evidence is at least as strong as the evidence for the Holocaust. even allowing for eyewitnesses to the Holocaust. It is the plain truth that we are cousins of chimpanzees, somewhat more distant cousins of monkeys, more distant cousins still of aardvarks and manatees, yet more distant cousins of bananas and turnips. Continue the list as long as desired. That didn't have to be true. It's not self-evidently, tautologically, obviously true. And there was a time when most people, even educated people, thought it wasn't. It didn't have to be true, but it is. We know this because a rising flood of evidence supports it. Evolution is a fact, and this book will demonstrate it. No reputable scientist disputes it, and no unbiased reader will close the book doubting it. Obviously, the vast majority of evolutionary change is invisible to direct eyewitness observation. Most of it happened before we were born, and in any case, it's usually too slow to be seen during an individual's lifetime. Although there is a chapter in the book called Before Our Very Eyes, which does discuss a number of examples of evolution that goes so fast that it can indeed be seen before our very eyes. We are like detectives who come on the scene after a crime has been committed. The murderer's actions have vanished into the past. The detective has no hope of witnessing the actual crime with his own eyes. What the detective does have is traces that remain, and there's a great deal to trust there. There are footprints, fingerprints, and nowadays DNA fingerprints too, bloodstains, letters, diaries. The world is the way the world should be if this and this history, but not that and that history, led up to the present. And that's how we get evidence for evolution, by looking at the traces that remain as though we were detectives who come on the scene after the crime has been committed, too late to be eyewitnesses to what actually happened. I'm going to move on now to chapter 6, which is called Missing Link. What do you need missing? Creationists are deeply enamored of the fossil record because they've been taught by each other to repeat over and over a mantra that it is full of gaps. Show me your intermediates. They fondly, very fondly, imagine that these gaps are an embarrassment to evolutionists. Actually, we're lucky to have any fossils at all, let alone the massive numbers that we now do have to document evolutionary history, large numbers of which by any standards constitute beautiful intermediates. We don't need fossils in order to demonstrate that evolution is a fact. The evidence would be entirely secure even if not a single corpse had ever fossilized. It's a bonus that we actually do have rich seams of fossils to mine, and more are discovered every day. Nevertheless, there are, of course, gaps, and creationists love them obsessively. Let's again make use of our analogy of the detective coming to the scene of a crime to which there were no eyewitnesses. The baronet has been shot. Fingerprints, footprints, DNA from a sweat stain on the pistol, and a strong motive all point towards the butler. It's pretty much an open and shut case, and the jury and everybody in the court is convinced that the butler did it. But a last-minute piece of evidence is discovered, in the nick of time, before the jury retires to consider what has seemed to be their inevitable verdict of guilty. Somebody remembers that the baronet had installed spy cameras against burglars. With bated breath, the court watches the films. One of them shows the butler in the act of opening the drawer in his pantry, taking out a pistol, loading it, and creeping stealthily out of the room with a malevolent gleam in his eye. You might think that this solidifies the case against the butler even further. Mark the sequel, however. The butler's defense lawyer astutely points out that there was no spy camera in the library where the murder took place, and no spy camera in the corridor leading from the butler's pantry. He wags his finger in that compelling way that lawyers have made their own. There's a gap in the video record. We don't